Good afternoon, everyone. It's Shamila Ramjawan coming to you from the Red Corner Show in Johannesburg, South Africa. My first guest for 2021 is Atishca Makan, who is in South Africa as well. Atishca is a Mrs. Johannesburg 2021 Second Princess, Emotional Freedom Techniques Practitioner, Bereavement Guide and founder of Dressed with Legacy, and we're going to hear all about that today. She's also a brand and communications consultant, taking corporate level expertise to aspiring entrepreneurs and organizations with heart. She previously worked on brands such as 702, Eyewitness News, Lead SA, and Prime Media Group. After the death of her father in 2016, she began with grief journey and inevitably found her purpose. She founded Dressed with Legacy in November 2018. Hello, Atishca. How are you?
Oh, well, thanks, Shamila, and thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I'm really honored to be your first guest for 2021 as well. It's very exciting. Thank you.
I'm so looking forward to the chat and myself and the audience getting to know you a little better and just to know exactly what you do, because you have such an interesting bio. And I just don't want to give away too much. I think let's leave it to you and let the discussion flow. So if you just want to take me through who is Atishca, a bit of background, place of birth, age, family life. I know you have 4 dogs, so you can add them into.
So I grew up in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, and I moved to Johannesburg in 2005. And my upbringing was amazing. I had both incredible parents. My dad worked in the South African Navy. My mom was a grade R school teacher. I have a younger brother who's 4 years younger to me, and he does graphic design and stuff like that, as well as being a DJ. So he does the club scene and the remixes and music production and all of that type of thing. And in 2005, after I completed the first half of my BCom marketing degree at the University of Durban Westville at the time, I realized that there was a lot of things that I really wanted to experience that was outside of the theory. I wanted to get into the workforce. I wanted to understand what I'm getting myself into, having chosen marketing and branding as a career. And the choice to move to Johannesburg was just that. I wanted more. Coming from Durban, all you hear are stories of Johannesburg being the place to be, the place where decisions are made. And I really wanted to be in a place where decisions are made. I wanted to influence decisions as opposed to just following them. And if you searched any business at that point, most of the head office was in Johannesburg. So I moved to Johannesburg in 2005 and started my career, working for smaller agencies. And I completed my BCom marketing degree through UNISA. And that was an incredible experience because at that time I was studying, I was working full time, and I was getting married. So everything was just all over the place, but it worked out brilliantly because I got the experience I needed. I got life lessons. I became more street smart because I was a very protected Indian child in Durban. So it was just an amazing opportunity to become part of Johannesburg from that time.
That is so interesting. So, Atishca, just going back to your early life and your childhood, what actually stands out for you as your earliest memory?
I think it would have to be, it's a very simple memory. It's of my family being in the kitchen. Mom was busy doing her thing, and dad was busy making cheese toast, in the oven, and it was just a happy moment where we were all together and we were just happy being simple. So I think my earliest memory would be just that moment, or the feeling of being content and being safe and being at peace and just watching my little family do its thing in the morning.
And we all have childhood aspirations, what would you say was your biggest aspirations? Usually when we grow up, we have these aspirations, but when we grow up, it's something completely different. It's like a different path that's chosen for us. So what would you say was your childhood aspirations?
Oh dear, I think I've changed my mind like a gazillion times. I used to be on the debating team and stuff like that in school. I was, your typical head girl all that kind of responsibility. So with career guidance and the counselors at school and stuff like that, they assumed that, becoming a lawyer would be a natural progression for me. And at that time, there was this TV series called JAG, and it was all about these military lawyers. And I thought, wow, that's a great fit, because I could follow in my dad's footsteps and become a lawyer and everything would be great. And then, I was like, I don't think I can have that whole life and death situation responsibility on me. So I kind of steered away from that. And then I thought about marine biology for a time, because I've always been fascinated with mermaids. I mean, growing up, there was that series or movie called Splash, and everyone wanted to be a mermaid. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. I can swim with dolphins. And then it's like, nah, I don't like cold water. I have to have hot water. So that's definitely not going to work. And, my mind kept changing. And at the time, when I realized what I really wanted to do was become marketing and be in that marketing space, because I was able to influence a lot of different things, especially people's perception of things. And I quite liked that, because it was creative and it was strategic at the same time. And I love doing both. So that's kind of how I ended up doing that as a career full time.
So do you think that's your chosen career path?
I think it was Steve Jobs that says you're only able to connect the dots after the fact. And it's amazing, because my career progression has gone into that corporate space of brand communications, marketing, working for radio stations. It was really, really shiny, and it was involved. It had a lot of strategy behind it, and I totally loved it. And then I reached a point where a lot happened in my life, and I needed to reevaluate who I was and what my purpose was going to be. And after that, I started going into the grief and bereavement space. At first it started as a necessity in my own personal healing, and then it became a passion of mine, because I absolutely loved the authenticity in that space. And the tools that I learned to cope with my own healing is what I eventually became a practitioner of. So again, going back, everything that I've done has connected the dots to the point of, if I am in front of a client now in terms of brand communication and marketing, I can speak to them from a strategic corporate level and a human, I think you have limiting beliefs level. So it's a very holistic conversation that I have with people now, and it's absolutely amazing.
That's wonderful. I just want to backtrack a little bit. And I know you come from a very close-knit family, a small family, and lots of love and togetherness in that home that you had. I'm saying had because of your dad. So do you want to maybe take me through that journey? Because I know, I always go out on social media and profess, especially now with COVID-19, where we tell people love one another, love people close to you, appreciate them, respect them, rather pick up that phone and say, I love you now than wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow might never come. And we're going through that at the moment with family and friends. So I know in your home, there was lots of love and togetherness. So do you want to take me through that? Just the family, I would say the love and the compassion and everything that you had in that family.
Yeah, and I think I was extremely fortunate in that, in hindsight, looking at the different circumstances that other people had whilst growing up. So like I mentioned, my dad was in the Navy, so he was a man of integrity, of honor, and everyone looked to him for advice, because he was always this neutral person who was able to just respond from a place of simplicity and not have to get all emotional about situations. And my mom was the creative, fun-loving side. So there was an age difference of 7 years between my dad and my mom. My mom was 7 years younger. And she was just the life of the house. And my brother, he's one of those crazy kids where he's a typical Indian boy who loved music from the time he was growing up. So he was always making noise, connecting car speakers, dismantling my dad's car and reassembling it and doing all those weird and wonderful things. And growing up in a household where everything was going really, really well until the point where it wasn't. And that was when my dad was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So he was away in Cape Town completing his warrant officer's course, and he was sent home because he wasn't well. And we thought it was just, it was clearly fatigue. He had to jump from ships into the freezing ocean half of the time. So we honestly thought that, his body just couldn't cope with what was going on. And, seeing someone who was so physically strong and mentally strong, be diagnosed with something that was so debilitating to the point of, over a period of 20 years, he had hip replacements, knee replacements, multiple surgeries. I think we knew almost all the hospitals in Durban. And it was just a case of seeing someone's life deteriorate to the point of all of us becoming caregivers. So at that time, now as an adult, I can look back and say, wow, my mom was 32 when she first started having to do this. How resilient of a woman can she, had she have to be in order to go through that caregiving process for over 20 years? And it's only now as an adult that we're able to respond to it from oh my goodness, and you never told people you were going through this. You never had any support. Because coming from a conservative Indian family in Durban, it's a case of you're always told, what happens in your home stays in your home. You don't really reach out to people. You don't tell them what you're going through. You just, you deal with it yourself. You manage it.
It's true, yes.
And, during that time, they reached a point where her body couldn't take it anymore, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, no.
So she's had a mastectomy. And growing up, at that point, I was already in Johannesburg when I got the call to say, look, mom's been diagnosed with cancer. And there's so many emotions that happens during that time, because firstly, you feel extreme guilt, you're not there. And then it's a case of, oh my God, how do we make this work? Because I've got a job here. How do I do this? How do I do that? But it's incredible the relationship my parents had, because they were like a tag team. The days when my dad was okay, my mom wasn't. And my mom wasn't okay. They kind of swap roles so often in that caregiver kind of space that, it was incredible to see the love and resilience from there. And the one thing I appreciate the most, that I really hope the audience and everyone else takes into consideration, is the honesty and transparency in which you deal with illness in the family. Because it's not a case of, I am terrified something's going to happen to me, so I rather not say anything. My dad, every single time he went for an operation, he'd sit us down, he'd explain, this is what is going to happen, this is what the risks are going to be, and these are my documents. If something happens to me, you guys need to do X, Y, and Z. And he did that the first time, and my brother and I were really young, we didn't quite comprehend. And then when he had the second op and the third op, and, after his passing, we realized just how much he prepared us for what needed to be done, that we were able to do it without fear that we're going to do something wrong, without anything of, oh my goodness, like, what do we do? Mom's in a state, how do we approach her and ask her for advice? Because most parents, what I'm finding, when I consult with people who do the emotional freedom technique stuff with me, a lot of them are saying that they are sitting with guilt because they don't know if what they've done is correct. They're not sure if they've missed out anything. They're not sure if this was the wish that their family members had. And it's extremely difficult, because now with COVID, there's a whole additional layer of not being able to do anything.
Yes.
You can't do a lot of the rituals that we used to do. So it just makes them feel more guilty and more embarrassed about the situation. And there's a whole host of emotions that are coming out. So my family, as much as we loved each other, we were honest and transparent every single time about anything that was going on. Every decision we made it as a family. And I think that was something that allowed us to be involved. And the other thing is that most parents and most families now, what they're doing is they are keeping their financial situation hidden from their children, because they don't want to feel like they, burdening them with issues. And that's great. To some extent, yes, that's extremely important. But also be honest with them, because what you're teaching them is how to be resilient as an adult when you grow older, that you are going to experience challenges and there are ways to deal with it, and you can deal with it together as a family. So yeah, I was very fortunate that as much as my family went through, we were just together the entire time. And it was just open, honest, and full of love.
I'm sure that affected your mental being, I mean, that is normal. You're very close to your dad and your mom. So just your depression, I know you went through a whole phase of depression as well. Do you maybe want to share that with us?
Yeah. When you're going through life, you follow a certain protocol in which you want your life to be extremely like a checkbox kind of thing, study, be the good girl at school, study, get the good grades, go to university, get the great job, your CV looks great, everyone's proud of you. And you just carry on in that vein for as long as you can. But when things like death and grief and burnout come into play, you have to at some point make a decision with regards to who am I, and is whatever's happening around me serving me as a person? Because what happened was that my dad, just before my dad died, a colleague of mine passed away, so I was given her workload, and that was perfectly fine. And then my dad fell ill, and within a few days he passed away, very similar to, like the COVID situation. But his was obviously a progression of the medication for his arthritis that caused it. So there was that whole situation that happened. And, with Hindu customs and rituals, you've got an entire year where you've got a 6 months memorial ceremony, and then you've got a 1 year ceremony. So for the first year, we just kept ourselves busy with planning for the next thing and planning for the next thing. And in that time, I was in charge of all of the admin for it. So I was winding up my dad's estate on behalf of my mom, just to help her with all the stuff that she needed to do. And it was a very eye-opening experience in that I went around erasing my dad like he didn't exist. So I'd go in, I'd submit all the documents, I'd get I'm sorry for your loss, here's the document that says your account has been closed, done. So for me, it was a case of, this is who I am as an individual. And when I pass on, that's all that's going to happen, is that someone's going to go around closing all of my accounts. And I'm going to be erased as though I never existed. I'm an ordinary person. I'm not famous. I mean, I'm not going to be in any history books or anything like that. What about who I was? What about the things I went through? What about my story? None of that is going to matter to anybody a generation or two down the line. And it made me extremely angry having to do that for my dad. And part of that anger, it reached a point where at the office, during that first year, my boss, who was also my life coach, she resigned. So I had additional work coming in. I was moved from one division of the business to another division of the business. There was just too many things that was happening, too many changes. And death changed me to the point where I was sitting in a meeting one day and people were talking about billboards and advertising, the usual stuff. And I kept thinking, you guys are so passionate and angry about it. Do you not know that there's more important things about life, about, everything else? And you are talking about billboards like it's the end of the world. Like it has to flat on a particular date, otherwise. And I was like, no, I'm becoming someone I'm not. I'm not recognizing myself anymore. And I just spiraled. Like the depression just took over. I reached that burnout phase. I left corporate without another job. I just said, at this point in time, I need to focus on me because I don't think I can carry on like this anymore. And that was the scariest thing I'd ever had to do. And like I said, when you're that good girl and you've just decided to quit your job with no other plan, I was like, okay, so what's the worst that can happen? Mommy's around. Mommy will make sure I'm okay. My brother's there. My husband's there. I'm not going to be homeless. I'll figure it out. And they allowed me that time to kind of to heal, to be able to find myself again.
Wow, that was quite a big step, just going there, resigning, not going to any job, and but at least you had some sort of support, which is great. Yeah. So just how did you manage with, I know, grief comes in so many different forms. Right now, the whole world is going through some sort of grief. How did you actually manage with your grief? Maybe share some of your tips that can help others out there.
I think the first thing I had to do was to understand that whatever I was feeling was okay. because the first thing that comes to mind is I should have done, I could have done, why didn't I do enough? You try to question every action that you've ever done, probably going back into childhood. And the first thing I had to do was understand that I can't change whatever happened, and I needed to make peace with that. I had to understand it, and I had to accept it. And I did a lot of journaling. So every time I felt a particular emotion, I would write it down. I would try to forgive myself for the things that I was feeling, because it's natural and it's okay. And most people don't tell you that. It's like, how do you say to someone that someone's passing gave you a slight sense of relief because you're no longer anxious about what's coming next? Especially that, with caregivers and things like that. So I did a lot of journaling. And one of the tools that I was introduced to was EFT, which is Emotional Freedom Techniques, or tapping. And that really helped me verbalize the things that I was feeling and to shift the emotions around it. It's a very effective tool, and I'm so grateful that I was introduced to it at the time that I was, because having to do those exercises every day really helped me make peace with myself and with the situation. There was a point where I was just so angry with absolutely everything. There was no way to vent out that anger. You can't break stuff. You can't run away. You can't do all of those things. So the only thing that looked normal from the outside was boxing. So I took on a few classes there just to be able to get the anger out of me. Very effective, helped me, get fit, but also to be able to release all of that stored anger. That was really, really important for me. And, during that time, I looked for spaces where I could be myself and I could talk about how I was feeling. But it's either you go see a psychologist or a counselor, which I did. I had to at that point. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I think a lot of people have stigmatized, oh my gosh, she's going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, even worse. But honestly, they do save lives. They are extremely important in times when you really can't comprehend what you're feeling. And so those spaces that I went looking for, they were either overly religious and, they would obviously link how you're feeling to religion, or they were places where they were just there to try and fix you. And I think the one thing I realized over time is that grieving people don't want to be fixed. They just want to be heard. They want their feelings to be validated. And I couldn't find a space like that. So during the time that I was going through the grief, I actually met a friend of mine. Her name is Danny Donald. She's actually a conscious leadership coach and counselor. And her dad had passed around the same time as mine, and we kind of bonded through that. And because of the way we resonated with the fact that there isn't a space that either of us found that made us feel safe enough to unpack our feelings, we created that space.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow, well done.
Thank you. But yeah, I mean, we created that space for other people, and we've been doing it either in person, and during COVID, lockdown, we've been doing it online sessions just to create that space for people. And it's kind of, I think we're the only very few people get excited to talk about death and grief. And when we have those sessions, we actually are really excited. We'll log in early and just, be ready for it. And it's a beautiful space to be in.
I think it's so important now, especially what you're doing, because there's a lot of people that need help. People are losing loved ones, especially now with COVID-19. And you are in a space where you can help other people just by sharing your story, and also by people contacting you. So we'll get to contact details just now, but just take me through Dressed with Legacy, how that started, and what's it all about?
So during the time of my extreme anger, that my dad was going to be erased. That was about a year after his passing, and we needed to donate his items, it was time to let that go. And what I found was that, again, I was extremely angry that this is clothes that I bought for his birthday or for Father's Day. I mean, it's stuff he wore for special occasions. It's stuff we used to sing him in all the time. And here it was just going away. And what I decided to do with my family was to say, okay, let's sit together as a family like we normally do everything. And let's just talk about Dad. All the memories that we have about him, all the good stuff, the funny stuff. everything, the stuff that used to annoy us even. And let's just talk about it. And while we are packing his clothes away, let's attach it to clothing tags and attach those tags to those clothes so that the person who's receiving it gets to know about our father. They get to know about everything about him that we loved. And, it's just one additional person's blessing that goes out to him. I mean, it doesn't have to come to us. It's just a blessing that says, okay, I am now being dressed in the legacy of this amazing man. I really hope he receives his blessings wherever he is. And it was just a beautiful way for us to go through our feelings and to let go of his items. And that is kind of where the concept started. And it's just something I've been doing by myself. And as I started working with people who are grieving, I'd give them the idea and they'd love it. And we just stopped doing that. So people started donating clothing to me with memories of people that have passed on. And I work with various charities. So I give those clothing to them in order to donate it to charity. So it might seem like a very simple thing of just putting clothing tags, but to the person who's going through that process of remembering, because I always say that we need to remember to heal, and it works both ways. We need to remember that we have to heal, but we also need to remember stuff in order to heal. So that's kind of where the concept came about. And again, I'm not a registered nonprofit organization or anything like that. It's just the concept was something that came from my need to remember.
That's wonderful. That is such a great initiative. And going back to COVID again, there's going to be so many people that have things to give away. And here you are, you can take it in and do whatever you need to do and send it through to organizations or people that really need it out there. So well done on that as well. That's wonderful. I've never heard of such an initiative before.
Thank you so much. I mean, our most recent recipients were the people in Krugersdorp who on New Year's Day were flooded. So whatever clothing that I had collected went through to the families there that lost all of their stuff in the flood. So it's an amazing way to just let our loved ones help other people through their clothing.
I did see that. I did see your post on social media. So that was a great initiative as well. At least, you actually gave it to somebody who's going to, or people that are going to use that. So it goes back to my next question, and that is something on a lighter note. Mrs. Johannesburg, second princess. How was that journey?
It was very spontaneous, like I mentioned earlier. So the organizer of the co-founder of Role Models Foundation, Juanita Smith, she found me on Facebook. I'm not really sure how. I think she probably saw, the post that I do, and she's like, why don't you join us? I think it'll be exciting. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I've never thought of pageants in my life. I mean, I was obsessed with Christy Naka when she won Miss South Africa.
Miss South Africa, yes.
I was cheering on. I had article clippings and all of that. But as you grow older, you kind of let that dream fade away. It's like, okay, if I'm not miss something, it's not going to happen. It's okay. I'm getting older, And when she approached me, I was like, okay, so what is the criteria to enter? Swimsuits is a definite no. I don't have the shape for it yet. It's a work in progress.
Come on. You're beautiful. Every woman's beautiful.
Yeah, every woman is absolutely beautiful. I just wasn't sure if my jiggly bits were comfortable being out there yet.
You know what? It's never going to happen. You've got to make peace with certain things on your body, your face, or whatever. So just live with it and make peace and say, I am beautiful. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is me. I accept me for who I am, and I'm gorgeous.
I could do that. I could definitely do that.
Easy. Do it. Try it.
So Juanita contacted me, and the only reason why she convinced me was when I asked her what the criteria was. She says that this is a pageant that's inclusive of divorced women and widows. And at that time, I was doing a lot of work with widows. And as soon as she mentioned that was kind of the game changer for me, because I was like, okay, so if there's a space that actually empowers women regardless of what life phase they're in, you're not just looking at the shiny bits, you're looking at the brokenness that comes with just living your life. and you're still embracing a woman like that, and you are supporting her through her whole transformation. I was like, oh my goodness, yes, that's me. And the fact is that me being an advocate and a voice for people who are grieving, to me, it just felt like a natural fit. It's like, okay, so maybe I can convince more widows to come out of their shell and eventually give their lives a second chance. Because in seeing the response from my mother to this whole process of her life, to, you know, kind of giving up, to saying that, you know, it's okay, my life's done, it's over now, I don't need to progress anymore or do anything. So when role models kind of came in with that opportunity, I was like, okay, let's try this. You know, I'm a freelancer now, I have a little bit more time, let's see how it goes. And then she also mentioned the amazing charities that they support. You know, the educator centers that they put up for people, they work with the elderly, they work with kids. So they had all of my weak points in one. And I was like, okay, let's just give this a shot and see what it's about. And I must say, it's been such an amazing process, because we got to know people and their stories and everything that brought them to that point of taking part. And it's more of a family. I honestly don't think I would have made these many connections had I not been in that space. And yeah, it's just been incredible.
Absolutely wonderful platform to be on. Well done and congratulations. How did you feel on stage at that moment? You walked the ramp, you did your outfit changes. What did you feel inside? You know, did you feel like a winner? Were you disappointed that you didn't win, but you became second princess? Just take me through that journey.
So walking down the ramp, I think my greatest fear was falling off the ramp, because it was quite narrow. It was quite an experience to be able to walk down a ramp and to have all of these, you know, the lights, the camera. You see all of this on TV all the time, but you never know the emotions it evokes once you're walking down. It was a very proud moment to be able to just say, this is me and I'm not afraid to be seen. And I love that about the whole thing, because it's been such a journey from the depression to walk on stage to be able to say, I'm not afraid to be seen for who I am. I have a story, and it's not all perfect and it's not all rosy, but here I am anyways, and I love that part of it. With regards to feeling disappointed, absolutely not. The winner, Leslie Reykutsa, for Mrs. Johannesburg 2021, she is phenomenal. She's a woman who's going through her own health issues, but her heart is in the most perfect place in terms of the amount of support she's able to get together to do the things that she does. I mean, she's an amazing businesswoman on top of that. And I absolutely could not think of a better Mrs. Johannesburg 2021, honestly, having got to know her and her journey and absolutely everything around it. So I don't think it was a case of me being disappointed. I think it was, this is my first try and I have a tiara. Oh my goodness, I have a tiara. So I think it was more excitement that I was there than anything else.
So any more pageants for you?
Wow, I'm not really sure.
You know, it could get addictive, so you got to decide whether you want to be in it or not, you know. So yeah.
It is actually quite addictive. I think for me, it's let me go through this year and make my most impact in the role that I have before choosing, you know, another role. But at the same time, I'm really enjoying the photography, and I'm really enjoying the photos and featuring in different places. I'm like, oh my goodness, this face is now everywhere. I'm loving that. I have to say, I won't lie. It's been amazing.
That's lovely. So before you know it, your phone's going to be very full with all these selfies and all of that, because, you know, it gets to a stage where you just want to take photos of yourself all the time. You're wearing all these glam outfits and you're all dolled up. You have this beautiful makeup on and your hair is done, and you're going to events and you're going to initiatives and outreach programs and all of that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you out there. On another lighter side, what do you do for fun? What hobbies do you have?
So the two most unusual ones, I think, for most people is that I'm a first responder with the neighborhood CPF. So, I mean, most people's idea of fun is to be out there partying. Mine is dealing with accident scenes and all of that stuff. So that's kind of where Yeah, so that's kind of where my spare time goes to. It's just making sure the neighborhood's okay, my neighbors are okay, and I go around finding lost dogs and all of that stuff and everything in between. Um, and the other one is that I'm a human book at the Human Library of South Africa. So most people either haven't experienced it or they've heard about it from an international level, because it is a global initiative that started in Denmark, where people are the actual books. And you book in a time slot at the different events, whether in person or online, to have a discussion with the person and just break stereotypes around different topics. So for instance, my book, or my title is Grief, A Necessary Discomfort. And people will book time with me to understand the grief process, because they're either going through it or they're anticipating it based on whatever circumstances they have. So we'll have an open and honest conversation about what you can expect, how it might feel, my journey around it. And there are so many different titles people have gone through: extreme horrors, trauma, illness. There's just amazing titles to choose from. And all it is that people don't necessarily break stereotypes because they don't associate with people who they find challenging or different. So here you are intentionally going into a space. So for instance, you could speak to someone who's either, had limbs amputated, for instance, and ask them about what is that journey like? How does it work? Because you create a deeper tolerance and sensitivity around topics. And what I found was that when I was introduced to it and I was a marketing, a brand manager, my level of sensitivity was heightened in a way that whatever content I created took into cognizance all of the stuff that I had learned from just having conversations with people. So it's an amazing initiative, and I love spending time. It's completely voluntary, so that's how I kind of spend my time too.
Just before you go ahead, is that a paid service? Do people need to pay for that service?
No, it's completely free.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, so it's an international organization. The service is completely free. And the volunteers, obviously, we are just completely volunteers. For instance, if there is a corporate that wants to have a specific session for their company, they're welcome to do so as well. A lot of people are doing that because most of the executives need to understand the people that work with them. And you can't really have a discussion with someone that you've employed, so you might as well understand stereotypes from a slightly different perspective. So
that is so true. Yes, that's very helpful.
Yeah. And the rest of the time, it's family time. It's spending time with my 4 dogs, or playing on the PlayStation. I actually enjoy doing that a lot too.
Wow, I don't know where you find the time for that, because you seem like you have your hands full. Tell me about your 4 doggies. I mean, I have one that takes up so much of my time and he just wants attention all the time. How do you actually distribute your time now to 4 different doggies?
I think because they are their own family units. So I've got the mom, the dad, and the daughter.
Okay.
So they have their own family unit, and then I have so they are American pit bulls.
Oh, and my goodness, you are very brave.
So again, it's breaking stereotypes. I definitely support the underdog and the different. So I've got 3 of them, and then I've got a Siberian Husky as well, because sometimes you want that fluff appeal. So his name is Damon, and he's got blue eyes, so kind of a Vampire Diaries dog version of Damon.
Gorgeous.
So spending time with them, I mean, I'm sure they loved it the whole of last year, because we'd be working outside and they'd be all around us and stuff like that. So I think they're enjoying it a lot more than I am, actually.
Yes, they get so attached to you, and especially when you need to go out, they, my one just sulks. He just goes into this state where he doesn't want to look at anybody, and he puts his head down and he just sulks. Atishca, how can one get hold of you? Because I think, there's so much that you can share with people out there, and I would hope that a lot of people are listening and they're going to tune in and contact you, because I think you can help a lot of people, especially during this time, what we're going through now with COVID-19 and people losing loved ones. So do you maybe want to share your details, not your cell phone number, but contact details that people can get hold of you?
Well, the good thing is that my name is spelt in such a unique way that there is only one if you search for it. So I am my own unique keyword. So it's Atishca, Atishca, and my surname is Makan, Makan. So all of my handles, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, wherever you find me, that would be the easiest way to find me, is just search my name and it will definitely come up in your searches.
That is so easy. Your last words?
Well, I think for me personally, it's a case of people need to support initiatives like what you are doing because of the fact that it allows us to engage with uncommon knowledge. A lot of the time we search for what we are looking for, but in listening to other people's discussions, we're hearing the things we should be hearing. Because we do have this bias of if something comes across as slightly triggering, we kind of switch off. But in listening to other people's conversations, in understanding the triggers that come through from there, in understanding, the tools and techniques that people have been using to deal with things, we don't have to reinvent going through certain things. We are able to share knowledge and able to, gain the skills that we need to deal with things better. So, in parting, it's just say yes to being different, say yes to trying different things. You never know, you might just end up with a tiara.
Yes, you never know, hey? The Tiara Girls. Atishca, thank you so much for coming on board and chatting to me. I think you have such inspirational stories to share, and there's so much of advice and help that you can give out to people there, because everyone has a story to tell. And I wish you all the luck, and God bless you for what you're doing, because you're doing so much in terms of humanity. And you are the type of people more people that we need in the world. So keep it up. I look forward to seeing your posts on social media and following your journeys, and just trying to support you as well, going along. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the chat today.
And thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
And to everyone out there, if you would like to get on the chat, please email me, redcornerchat@gmail.com. We all have stories to share. Make sure that you share your story to inspire someone out there. This is a global chat show, so please contact me on email or social media as well. Like Atishca Makan says, she is the only Atishca Makan. I'm the only Shamila Ramjawan in the world. So get out there, contact us, and God bless you all.